The world has changed significantly, and NATO has to change along with it. And its core mandate, which was basically to provide security for the Euro-Atlantic area, has to shift to reflect a new worldview. What will then be the specific role of NATO in such a very murky and a difficult international security terrain? Is NATO going to be seen as the big bully in town that will be stopped by others? That will all depend on the impression NATO would give to the rest of the world, particularly China and Russia, that would want to keep a stake, maintain a very important stake on the international security agenda. I think,
in my opinion, I try to see NATO as an international mediator in the future, rather than just a Euro-Atlantic military alliance, and especially because nations like India are apprehensive and not very fond of these bloc alliances, and so NATO could be a forum for discussing, debating, and promoting international security concerns, which of course is visible on NATO's publications. But
NATO has been quite innovative in saying, well, look, if a country commits troops in Afghanistan, then we will have their leader at the Leaders' Summit. They will have a vote in the Council, and a whole range of things. So effectively, it creates a kind of ad hoc membership model. And I think in many ways that's much more stronger than saying, let's have a bigger NATO, which obviously internally would cause complications with countries who probably wouldn't be so annoyed if NATO had an ad hoc model, where, for example, they still retain the central power effectively, but they share the burden over activities. And it also means that it allows NATO to spread its wings much broader than simply Atlantic issues, and it allows it to focus on particularly, I suppose, interstate issues such as piracy, such as people trafficking and so forth, which in my view are sort of more of the issues that are going to define sort of 21st century international relations than traditional sort of nation-state warcraft within Europe particularly. So that's what I wrote.
Of course, I think the military role still may be the very important role of NATO, but I think that please keep in mind the military actions and the launched by the NATO should be a peacekeeper and under the rules of UN.
I believe that the past doesn't have to constrain the nature of NATO in the security framework, but it's part of what is now. And I believe that it shouldn't be different from what he is now, because he's a military organization and is very able to reinvent itself with.
Finally, I think NATO should aim for the assurance of kind of human security. And when I say human security, I'm referring to a definition given by Mahmoud Ibn. I'm sorry for mispronouncing his name probably. And I'm quoting here, he says that human security is seen as a child who did not die, a disease that did not spread, an ethnic tension that did not explode, a dissident that was not silenced, a human spirit that was not crushed.
My perspective was that if NATO could have that role of intermediary between that national security to protect the people practically, to have a humanitarian role in the intervention that it has, and then in order to stabilize the whole international security, because we have too many new threats coming up, and especially non-state actors are actors which cannot be predicted. So I thought that in some point that would be a very efficient way of NATO developing.